Let's open in prayer, shall we? Dear Lord, as we come before you today, we thank you for the day you've given us. We thank you for this place we can come out to. Mostly we thank you that you are here. You are among us. You are waiting to show us and teach us and instruct us in the way we need to go. We pray that during this time you would open the scriptures to our minds, that you would kindle in us a joy and an interest in your scriptures. Lord, show us the way we need to go. Give us the message we need to have for today and this week, and help us to understand it. And Lord, that you might receive the honor and glory in this time. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, open to Isaiah 55. Marty did Isaiah 53 last week, and I thought, oh, there's a good idea. So I just grabbed the next one along. Not exactly, but one that struck my mind. The Lord struck it. Okay, we'll read through it first. Now I'm using the New King James Version. I did some studying when I was studying. There's going to be some references to the King James, so it's close. It should get everybody, and if you've got a different version, it's going to give you different words and probably a different understanding, which is helpful when we're looking at this. So, Isaiah 55, there's 13 verses. Ho, everyone who thirsts, come to the waters, and you who have no money, come buy and eat. Yes, come, buy wine and milk, without money and without price. Why do you spend money for what is not bread, and your wages for what does not satisfy? Listen carefully to me, and eat what is good. And let your soul delight itself in abundance. Incline your ear and come to me. Hear, and your soul shall live. And I will make an everlasting covenant with you, the sure mercies of David. Indeed, I have given him as a witness to the people, a leader and commander for the people. Surely you shall call a nation you do not know, and nations who do not know you shall run to you, because of the Lord your God, and the Holy One of Israel, for he has glorified you. Seek the Lord while he may be found. Call upon him while he is near. Let the wicked forsake his way, and the unrighteous man his thoughts. Let him return to the Lord, and he will have mercy on him, and to our God, for he will abundantly pardon. For my thoughts are not your thoughts, nor are my ways your ways, nor are your ways my ways, says the Lord. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts. For as the rain comes down and the snow from heaven, and do not return there, but water the earth, and make it bring forth and bud, that it may give seed to the sower, and bread to the eater, so shall my word be that goes forth from my mouth. It shall not return to me void, but it shall accomplish what I please, and it shall prosper in the thing for which I sent it. For you shall go out with joy, and be led out with peace. The mountains and the hills shall break forth into singing before you, and all the trees of the field shall clap their hands. Instead of the thorn shall come up the cypress tree, and instead of the briar shall come up the myrtle tree. And it shall be to the Lord for a name, for an everlasting sign that shall not be cut off. So as we start at the beginning of this chapter, we see it starts with a call to attention. Ho, everyone who thirsts, come to the waters. When I was reading this, I pictured someone calling out in a busy marketplace, desperate to sell what he has, trying to make his voice heard over the din, hustle, and bustle around him. But this one's different. To the thirsty and the hungry, the call is made to come and drink and eat, whether they have money or not. This is what they need, but they don't have to pay for it. So also note the listener is told to come and buy or acquire without money. Yes, come buy wine and milk, without money and without price. They're called to come and acquire without money that which has no price. So something with no price is actually priceless in the truest sense, and beyond price, as we shall see later in the chapter. So looking at verse 2, why do you spend money for what is not bread, and your wages for what does not satisfy? Listen carefully to me and eat what is good, and let your soul delight itself in abundance. Why do you spend or strive money for what is not bread? Bread meaning food, something that will not satisfy, that won't fill you. And your wages, or in King James Version, labor, silver, for what does not satisfy. So this refers to chasing the things of this world. Sinful pleasures, glory, acclaim, accomplishments, all of which pass and don't even last much beyond the experience. So we tend to get caught up in the busyness of life and lose track of what is truly important. Listen carefully to me, halfway through the verse. Listen carefully to me and eat what is good. Listen carefully, in the King James Version, is hearken diligently to me. This is interesting because this means hearing intelligently, with attention, intending to obey, with discernment and understanding. So not just, yeah, I got that, okay, I'm good, and then you just carry on with your life. This is listening with the intent to taking it inside and fulfilling what it has to say. Or the instruction you're given, you're going to obey it. So pay attention. After that it says eat. Listen carefully to me and eat what is good. Eat obviously doesn't refer to eating the papers or eating what the person's saying, but eating what you consume or what you live on. So we all have things that we enjoy and we basically live on. That drives us in our lives. Not necessarily the meat and potatoes that we eat, but more important. So if you're listening carefully, you're hearkening diligently to the Lord's words, you aren't going to be chasing your tail. Good. Eat what is good. So, eating. You're not going to grab a whole bunch of garbage and start eating that. But we do it with what we watch, what we listen to, and it's going into us the same way our food is. So, this is a good thing. Eating what is good is eating what is beautiful, or best, better, bountiful, or cheerful. So thinking about what you're studying, what you're reading, what you're focusing on, this is obviously, why spend your time on things that don't matter? Spend your time on what's best, what's better than another choice. Spend your time on something that's cheerful. You know, we get ourselves caught up in the things of this world and wonder why we're just going down. It's in a spiral. We're being dragged down. Well, we're not focusing on what's best quite often. We're not focusing on what's beautiful, what the Lord shows us and cheerful. And let your soul delight itself in abundance. The news these days is not focused on abundance. You are not getting abundance. What's best, what's beautiful, what's bountiful, what's cheerful from today's news. And the Lord has for us an abundance in His Word. And that makes sense because He made us. And if He made us, He knows us best. He knows what we need. He knows the plans He has for us. So things that He does and gives us are going to be in line with those things. The King James Version says fatness instead of abundance. So the fat parts of a meal were the juiciest, tastiest, and the most enriching parts. So the fatness of the land, the best parts of the land. And that's what we need to be focusing on. Not the lean stuff that's just going to exercise your jaws. Verse 3, incline your ear and come to me. Hear, and your soul shall live. And I will make an everlasting covenant with you, the sure mercies of David. Incline your, just incline your ear, tip your head, lean a little more intently, and come to me. And whenever the pronoun me, you, I is capitalized, it's talking about God. So incline your ear and come to God. Hear, and your soul shall live. And the hear that's said here that's said here. Gotta love English sometimes. Here, listening, that's the same as hearken. So listening intently, listening diligently, with obedience, wanting to do what's being told to you, waiting for instruction. You're on a new job and you got to figure out what, you don't look like an idiot, so you're listening very closely to the instructions you get. And that's what we need to be doing here. And I will make an everlasting covenant with you, the sure mercies of David. So everlasting covenant. We're going to go back here. Soul shall live. Your soul will be revived, kept alive, given life, nourished, preserved alive, saved by God, and be made whole again. So doesn't that sound just like what you get in church if they're preaching from God's Word? That's what you get from God. That's what you get from His Word. You get revival in your soul, in a group even. You are made whole again. Everlasting covenant is a perpetual compact and without end. And an everlasting covenant, if God makes it, it's everlasting because He's everlasting and He's consistent with Himself. A covenant, He doesn't break covenants. We do. So He's going to make an everlasting covenant with you. And then the sure mercies of David. I was a little confused with that at the start, but King James Version says, even the sure mercies of David. And it's not talking about David's sure mercies, David's mercies that he gave to his enemies, or he didn't give many mercies to his enemies, he cut off their heads. It's talking about sure mercies that were given to David, the sure mercies that were shown in David's life. We all know that David wasn't perfect. He messed up in many ways and very, very evident ways, just like the rest of us. But sure is making sure. It's solidifying, supporting. When you make something sure, you build it up. Mercies are, when you show mercy towards someone, you're showing them favor, you're showing them loving kindness, merciful kindness, or pity. So when you take other words that are used for, or other words that represent the sure mercies, you come up with faithful favor, permanent loving kindness, continued merciful kindness, or steadfast pity that was shown to David. And why was it shown to David? Well, the Lord loved David, but David was also a witness, as we'll see in the next verse. Indeed, I have given him as a witness to the people, a leader and commander for the people. So David, just like anyone who is a Christian, is a witness to those around him. Whether your witness is through words or through actions, usually the actions speak way louder than the words do. Indeed, I have given him as a witness to the people. And the people refers to the nation. So nation. He was mostly a witness to the Israel nation, to Israel. But we see that anybody reading the Bible can see him as a witness now, and can look into his life and see how the Lord was glorified in his life. A leader and commander. And a commander, he was a commander of the military there. He took his forces out under Saul, and eventually as king, he was the commander-in-chief for the people. He was appointed, he was given a charge, he was sent as a messenger, and to set in order. So all of these things, and of course I'm not thinking of all these things myself here. I got them all from Strong's Concordance. And it just helps you to understand the words in the verse, or in that line, much better, and gives you a better understanding of the whole meaning of the verse. Now, ideally, every time you look into the Bible, you'd have Strong's right there, and you'd do an hour-long study, but I tend to do it when I'm coming up here, because I want to try to handle things properly. Now, in verse 5, surely you shall call a nation you do not know, and nations who do not know you shall run to you, because of the Lord your God, and the Holy One of Israel, for he has glorified you. The nation they're talking about there is not Israel. They're talking about a foreign nation, or Isaiah. God is talking through Isaiah about a foreign nation. Surely you shall call a nation you do not know. So that's a foreign nation, or Gentiles, obviously the heathen they're referring to, and you would refer to Israel. Surely you, Israel, shall call a nation Gentiles. Israel does not know. And knowing refers to understanding, seeing, acknowledging, aware, comprehend. So the Jews really didn't have much to do with the nation, or weren't supposed to have much to do with the nations around them. They weren't supposed to intermarry and take their practices as their own, but they did, and they were affected by them. But because of the Lord your God and the Holy One of Israel, these heathen nations would take notice of Israel and seek them out, run to them, because of the Lord. So, what a picture of a Christian's life. In the Lord being glorified in your life is going to be a witness to those who don't know the Lord, and he will use that to call them to himself. Even when you're not doing what you're supposed to, like Israel did all the time. But when they were victorious and the Lord was doing great things, the nations around took notice. And glorified, for he has glorified you. And talking about the glory that he gave to Israel, because he had chosen them. Not because they deserved it, but because he chose them. So it was for God's glory that he glorified Israel. In verse 6 and verse 7, we're going to see a really good example of salvation in the Old Testament. Seek the Lord while he may be found. Call upon him while he is near. Let the wicked forsake his way, and the unrighteous man his thoughts. Let him return to the Lord, and he will have mercy on him, and to our God, for he will abundantly pardon. So, some of the words that I found helpful knowing a little more about. In verse 6, seek the Lord while he may be found, call upon him while he is near. That is talking about seeking the Lord while he is near to you. He's always everywhere. But when he is near your heart, when he is calling you, you need to seek. Because he did say he wouldn't strive with the heart of man forever. So there appears that there might be a time that's given for salvation. And after that. You don't want to miss your chance. Let the wicked forsake his way, and the unrighteous man his thoughts. Let him return to the Lord, and he will have mercy on him, and to our God, for he will abundantly pardon. So wicked, you're talking about mortally wrong, condemned, guilty, ungodly. Forsake. So when people like that, like us, mortally wrong, condemned, guilty, ungodly, forsake. Let the wicked forsake his way. So you've got to turn from your wicked way. It means relinquish, leave off, or refuse to follow that way anymore. So just like some people have said, you turn right around and head the other way. Unrighteous refers, you might think that, well, that they're repeating. Unrighteous, wicked, would kind of put those along the same lines, but unrighteous is actually one who will come to naught. Strictly nothingness, trouble, vanity. So it's a different term than wicked. So he's not just repeating that bad people need to forsake their ways. He's talking about people who are wicked, guilty, ungodly, and people that are just nothing. Driven by vanity, captivated by nothingness or silly things. And in their mind, his thoughts, intentions, plans, imaginations, and purposes. So, I'm talking about the wicked man forsaking his way, and an unrighteous man forsaking his thoughts, turn from his thoughts, and the intentions and thoughts, imaginations he's got. And then he says, let him return to the Lord. Convert, turn back, return to the starting point. Bring home again, recall, restore, reverse, recover. So return, just come back to where you started, where you should be, and he, the Lord, will have mercy on him, have compassion on, love him. And to our God, for he will abundantly pardon, he will forgive, he will spare. Verse 8, we see, for my thoughts are not your thoughts, nor are your ways my ways, said the Lord. And that would seem to be pretty self-explanatory. Obviously our thoughts, his thoughts, are vastly different from our thoughts. He's contrasting the big difference here. He's contrasting man's sinful thoughts from God's perfect intentions, plans, or purposes. And ways, referring to a person's way is their course of life, how they handle themselves, their manner of speaking, their manner of acting, their manner of travel. The course of their life, mode of action, conversation, custom, journey, manner. So what they're characterized by. Who is that person? And you would say that's their manner of life, that's their way. Again, pointing out the differences. The Lord's ways are so high above ours. And then he talks about it in verse 9. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts. That's a picture of the difference between ways of the Lord, thoughts of the Lord, and our thoughts. They're as far as the heavens are higher than the earth, and talking about where the stars are, where the planets are, the universe. So if you can measure that, how far the east is from the west, it's just, they're so far that they can't even compare the two. And then in verse 10, we take a jump from that. He's done contrasting our position with the Lord's position. For as the rain comes down and the snow from heaven, and do not return there, but water the earth, and make it bring forth and bud, that it may give seed to the sower and bread to the eater. So, as the rain comes down and the snow from heaven, and do not return there, but water the earth, and make it bring forth, and bud, that it may give seed to the sower, and bring bread to the eater. That is expanded a little more in the next. So shall my word be that goes forth from my mouth. It shall not return to me void, but it shall accomplish what I please, and it shall prosper in the thing for which I sent it. So the rain as everything on earth, everything in the universe has its purpose. And the Lord sends the rain in its season, the snow even. Snow at the end of the spring is poured in as fertilizer. You know, and that's kind of a silly little purpose from our perspective, but they all have a purpose that the Lord brings on the earth, and bring forth bud, seed to the sower, bread to the eater. But he used that to help us understand that his word will go forth. It has a purpose. There's a purpose for each person and each situation. He will put his word into our minds, and it shall accomplish what I please. It shall not return to him void. His word has a purpose, and even when we think, boy, I don't know. You know, that message today, what's the deal? Hopefully somebody got something. But when you're talking from God's word, there's something that if we're inclining our ear, if we're hearkening diligently, that's the important part. Because the Lord knows what he wants to do in your lives, and he's going to use his word to accomplish that purpose. So he's going to accomplish, he's going to perform, commit, he's going to do it, execute it, fulfill it, and please what he desires. He can do what he wants. Whatever he desires, he can do, because he's God. And it shall prosper in the thing for which I sent it. It's going to be prosperous. Not prosperous in a financial sense, prosperous in the sense of the Lord's purpose being accomplished in a person's life and a situation. In verse 12, for you shall go out with joy and be led out with peace. The mountains and the hills shall break forth into singing before you, and all the trees of the field shall clap their hands. Now, wouldn't that be something? If you're walking through the mountains and having the trees clap their hands, and maybe it's a reference to the wind and the branches all clapping, but I'll tell you, the mountains singing, that would be a big deal. And be led out, so carried, bring forth. So it's not talking about a person going out of their own. They're being led out. They're being sent. They're missionaries going out. Instead of the thorn shall come up the cypress tree, and instead of the briar shall come up the myrtle tree. And it shall be to the Lord for a name, for an everlasting sign that shall not be cut off. So, the thorns and the briars were the result of the fall. The Lord said, you're going to work by the sweat of your brow, and what's going to come forth is not the good things. It's going to be the thorns and the thistles, the briars, things that you're going to have to work your guts out, and you're not going to get what you want. But instead of the thorn shall come up the cypress tree and the myrtle tree, which are desirable things. They're beautiful things. So I looked at that and I thought, the Lord is talking about regenerating the earth, regenerating people. So instead of you and I being a thorn or a briar, it's a beautiful picture of salvation. And all of a sudden we become a useful thing for the Lord when we're saved. Regenerating the earth, maybe even the new earth and the new heaven. Talking about them being regenerated and the sin's curse no longer. So that would be in his new kingdom after the end of this world. And it shall be to the Lord for a name, for an everlasting sign that shall not be cut off. He ends with a wonderful picture of something that shall not fail, perish, be destroyed, ever, everlasting, and that, to me, pictures heaven. Ends with a wonderful picture of the Lord's redemption of the land, ending sin's curse, as well as regenerating sinners, and it shall be for a witness forever to the glory of the Lord, for he is mighty to save. Why don't we finish with our final hymn, number 146.